What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Manny here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a rather cloudy, cold, dark, rainy afternoon down here in Styria. I thought it's the ideal conditions for a rest day, which is the case today, and the ideal conditions to sit down in a comfy chair and have a little bit of a chat. Have a little bit of chat about one of my older vegan videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, because it's probably gonna be a little bit of a longer video. We're gonna talk about ethics today, in contrast to the previous episodes where we were more health-based, we were more health-focused, so we got that one out of the way. Today we are going to critique a video that is called Why the Hell I Eat What I Eat. I recorded this video roughly 3 years ago. And as usual, we're gonna watch it. I'm gonna pause it when I have something to say. And I sped up the video to 130% this time even, because back then my talking style was quite slow. I know today still my talking style is quite slow sometimes. Sorry for being a little bit rambly. And this video is probably gonna be a bit rambly too. You gotta be prepared for that already. So as I said, just simply grab a drink, grab a snack. Without too much further ado, let's start the video.
Hi everyone, it's Manny again. Welcome back to the channel. It's a wonderful...
Just a quick pause here again. The chiseledness. Man, the chiseledness. I was pretty damn lean back then.
Good morning here in Osp, which is a nice little village in Slovenia. And it's a very special place when it comes to rock climbing, because they have some awesome cracks here. I hope we can get some nice climbing footage done to show that to you. But back to the topic of this video. Why am I vegan? 3 reasons, 3 easy answers. For the animals, for the planet, for my health. Okay? But there's also another thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, and which I thought of recently, and that is being able to look at yourself in the mirror. Being able to look at myself in the mirror and be satisfied with who I am as a person. And just to be satisfied, just to be able to respect yourself, okay? To respect myself in this case. And when you look at it that way, then there are basically 4 different groups of people, in my opinion. And the first one is the uneducated ones. They are just not aware of what their actions are causing, okay? They don't know that animal products are bad, they don't know that their actions are causing suffering and death and destruction of the environment. And that's okay? Because we all start there at some point. When we are a baby, we simply don't know what our actions might cause. We just act towards our own survival. And that's okay when you're a very young being. But as we are growing older, we don't want to live a life in blindness anymore. We want to educate ourselves. We want to know what's going on behind the scene. We want to know what's going on behind the advertisement. And basically, we want to see beyond the metrics which we are living in modern Western world. If you know what I mean. That makes sense. And I think it's just a part of growing up. That is the only thing that differs grown-up person from a baby, which is basically the super noob stage of human beings, okay? The baby doesn't know anything, but it has the ability to learn. It has, like no other human being, the ability to learn. When we are young, we learn so fucking fast, and that is not by chance, because we want to educate ourselves, we want to see behind the scenes, we want to get knowledge. We want to accumulate knowledge so that we can live our life perfectly, that we can align our actions to our knowledge and become more efficient and better in whatever we want to do. That's why we learn so fucking fast when we are young. But when we gain this knowledge, when we are grown up, then we lose the ability to learn, at least to some extent. Which, this is what defines a grown-up person, in my opinion. Huge knowledge, the actions are aligned to their knowledge, but they kind of lose a little bit the ability to learn, because it's not necessary anymore, okay? You know already a lot. Of course you can keep your ability to learn when you train it. But that's another thing, again, I get lost in the details. Okay, so basically, I couldn't watch myself, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I would still be an uneducated person. So first thing, you get educated. Once you...
Alright, wow. Pretty inspiring talk there. What I want to say here is that while watching this, I'm realizing I didn't really change. I didn't really change in that attitude, compared to my vegan self 3 years ago, which was all about, self-development, finding out stuff, researching stuff, getting to the truth of things, getting to the core of things. And I am still quite that same person, I have to say, all right? So I'm still on the search of the truth, I'm still on the search when it comes to certain topics, at least, that I'm very interested personally in. And in that sense, we are living in a very interesting time today, because let's imagine like 10, 20,000 years ago or something, truth and reality was much more obvious. It was much more blatantly obvious, okay? Because you could be pretty sure back then that your grandparents and your parents had just the same lifestyle as you are going to have one. Just the same lifestyle as your children and your grandchildren are going to have. Because everything, the human way of life and the human environment was much more constant, okay? It was much more constant, yes. There was the occasional dangers in there. You could die of a famine. There could be a drought. There could be a predator attacking your tribe, a pack of predators attacking your tribe, and all these kind of influences. But these influences were constant, okay? There were constant dangers. There were constant solutions, all right? So the people back then knew what they had to eat. The people back then knew how they had to live, how they had to make a shelter to survive and all that kind of stuff. And the ways of living in that style would not change a lot, even over generations, right? Compared to our world now, you can be pretty damn sure that you're having a super different life compared to your grandmother or your granddad. And you can be a hell lot of sure that your grandchildren are going to experience a very different world than we are experiencing now when they are grown up. Of course, that depends what distance in years your generations have. But let's imagine a human being in like 50, 60 years from now or something. That's a completely different world, man. So we see that this change factor is kind of growing, it's jumping up exponentially as we are living in this modern world nowadays. And this does not come without side effects. The reason why this is the case actually is because it is very profitable, all right? We are slaves to progress in that sense. We are slaves to growth, all right? So the way how this happened is because we got money, we got this factor in profitability. From the time point where there's money on this planet, not only has something that exists a right to exist because it is efficient, because it is functional, because it serves a purpose, because it is healthy maybe, because it is effective, or whatever it is, whatever it may be, all these attributes had to, things and certain abilities had to have these attributes. Nowadays, the first attribute that is very important for something that exists in this world is that it is profitable, all right? So this is the first factor. And after that, we're going to take a look at effectiveness, at healthiness, at whatnot. And because it happens to be that some things are extremely useless or extremely harmful to our health or whatever, an extreme waste of time, but are at the same time extremely profitable, these things still exist despite all these negative attributes, okay? So this is the world we live in nowadays. Now, what this entails is that via media, via television, via radio, via advertisement, basically, big corporations, or if you want to call it the system or whatever you want to call it, push this message on us that we need certain things, which are at the same time very profitable for them if we buy them. And this is how, the reality kind of becomes blurry, okay? This is the first time in human history where reality becomes kind of blurry. So far, we only had maybe the crazy shaman or who would do certain god rituals and stuff like that, and blur the reality for his tribe members that way. But even this method, this practice, served a greater purpose most of the time. Sometimes it only served the purpose of the shaman, because then he got some nice things and he got food and stuff like that for free. But for the most part, I think that these rituals and stuff like that served the purpose to kind of educate the tribe in a certain way for him to be more able to live with his environment in balance, okay? Because if you attribute a certain goddess to a certain animal or something, you can only take as much as you need, right? Because if you would take more than that, you would kind of violate that goddess. You would kind of... that would be heresy essentially, and you would be punished with bad weather or disease or drought or whatever it might be. What the shaman kind of invented for in terms of punishing things. So the point that I'm getting here is that already back then I was quite aware of the fact that, especially in this Western civilization, and there's a pretty high chance that you're living there too, because you're watching this through a screen, through the internet, through a PC, reality is not anymore always what it seems. Reality is not that blatantly obvious anymore. And usually for these kind of people, when it comes to nutrition, the way leads down this road of vegetarianism, veganism. Why? Because you're seeing the corporations, you're seeing the supermarkets, you're seeing the horrible factory farming, okay? All that kind of stuff, all this really horrible stuff. And of course, this stuff is still horrible, and I still don't support it. Now, however, back in the day, when I recorded this video, one of the main arguments that was always present when it comes to the vegan discussion, when it came to the vegan discussion, inside the nutrition realm, was the health argument, okay? Back then, also here on YouTube, the main argument of the people promoting a vegan diet was that it is also the healthiest way to eat at the same time. So what you're doing is you're bypassing the evil organizations, the evil firms that are basically making factory farming and all that kind of stuff. You're bypassing a hell lot of transport, because all these animals eat a lot of grain, which has to be grown and then transported, and from time to time it's grown in the rainforest, and then it's shipped across whatever many distances and causes a super high global, CO2 footprint and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, it is healthiest. So it's really a win-win situation, if you do that. Nowadays, I have to say that the health argument for veganism is kind of out of the window, which I came to the conclusion of after, years of self-experimentation on that stuff, essentially. And it's funny, that's really what's happening here on YouTube as well. Now that the health argument crumbles more and more with all these ex-vegan videos and stuff like that, the vegan movement exists now long enough on YouTube for the first, people to come out to have these kind of deficiencies or whatnot they would have. And so the health argument crumbles slowly and slowly. Now, what those still remaining come up with is that they haven't never been vegan anyway before, because they weren't vegan for the ethics, right? They were vegan for their health, which was my main argument as well. Health and performance, in my sport, which already back then was already rock climbing. And I had quite good performance because I was light as hell. All right, now I'm heavier and I still have the same performance. So yeah, it's kind of that's the situation, right? But anyway, and they would say now, yeah, you haven't been really vegan because you didn't do it for the ethics. Well, that's really an interesting point that they're making here, and it's also kind of a bold statement, I would say, when we consider the fact that I think 84% or something of all vegans and vegetarians finally will go back to eating meat again. And this is a number that I've pulled out of Google. If you want to search this for yourself, you can try it. How many vegans stay vegan? These are the exact words that I used. And this came up. And in that number, they didn't even consider that the fallback rate for vegans alone, not only for vegans and vegetarians, is probably even greater, since vegetarianism is much easier to uphold than veganism, all right, in the long run. if vegans comment something like that, then all I can say is there is a really, really high chance that in a few years you're not gonna be vegan yourself anymore either, And I wouldn't recommend you to stay vegan anyway, okay? Because again, for health, it is probably not the ideal. However, sorry if I'm rambling too much here, to get back to my usual point, back then I thought that I was at the final destination of the nutrition rabbit hole, if you want to call it like that, okay? I thought that veganism was the final destination when it comes to all of that stuff, because veganism takes respect to the ethics, it respects environmentalism, it also respects the evil corporations with the factory farming and all that kind of stuff, and it is also the healthiest option, okay? So it's really a win-win situation to be vegan, and that's why I thought, nice, I found the bottom line, when it comes to the nutritional metrics. Little did I know that there is actually more stations, okay? The more destinations, I should say. And although back then I thought I know 100%, even now, okay, 3 years later, where I know so much more, man. I can say with full confidence finally that I know still not everything, okay? Because I simply haven't tried anything yet, and I probably never will, okay? But yeah, for me to claim that I know everything back then is actually pretty arrogant. And people, say below my videos that I'm acting arrogant towards my past self. They commented that on previous critiquing my old vegan videos episodes. I would say I was more arrogant back then because I knew less, and I still had the opinion that I know everything. Nowadays I know much more, but at the same time I know that I still don't know anything. Nutrition is an extremely complex matter, there's so many factors going into that stuff, and again, nutrition is not even everything when it comes to health, okay? I've talked previously about, in another video I think, about this Shaolin Kung Fu Master method, or this Shaolin Kung Fu Master attitude, I should say, where I went up to this Shaolin Kung Fu trainer and I asked him what he eats, because I was interested, because he was super fit and super agile and vital and everything. And he said, everything. I just eat everything. And I, kind of disappointed, expected a super intense discussion about nutrition with him and stuff. And I said, yeah, everything? Really? Everything? That's it? Yeah, everything. And then I went off, I thought, what a dumbass. He doesn't even know about veganism and vegetarianism and stuff like that. In fact, this guy just demonstrated that, what you're eating is only so much, if food and nutrition is at the center of your life, you have already done something wrong, okay? Food and nutrition should only be the foundation for something greater in your life, whatever that may be. Whether it may be being a good musician or a good painter or a freaking rock climber or a freaking, farmer even, or whatnot, Nutrition is only the foundation for something greater, for what you want to do with your life, essentially, what you want to be known for. That's how I see it nowadays. Okay, sorry, I just had to plug my laptop because it's already running out of battery, and I had to turn the lights on because it's already getting dark in here. Damn, these clouds outside have an effect. So let's keep watching here.
For educated, you have the choice between 3 other different kinds of people. And number 2 here would be the ignorant ones. I'm not sure if I'm using the term here in the right way, but for me an ignorant person is a person who knows what's going on, who got educated or educated themselves, but doesn't give a fuck. Okay, they don't give a fuck about the health, about the environment, about the animals. And yeah, that's kind of sad, because if you're an ignorant person, you will never align your actions with your knowledge. And this will prevent you from stepping your game up and reaching the next level. And that's what you want to do. You want to get better in life, okay? You want to step your game up, you want to reach the next level, you just want to get better and better and better. That's what's life all about. And if you're an ignorant person, you will never reach this step. You will fail because you don't act in alignment with your knowledge. First thing is you know it. Second thing is you do it. That's how it works. So I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I was an ignorant person. The third possibility would be to become a weak person. A weak person knows what's going on. They are educated as well. They know that animal products are bad, but they are too weak to give them up. Weak persons, weak people, this is a very huge group of people. And they are basically slaves of their addictions. So there was a time where smoking was advertised as healthy. And people believed that. People started to smoke, they believed it's healthy, and so they could justify their actions. But in the meantime, we got educated. We know that smoking is one of the maybe the unhealthiest addiction that you can have. I mean, there are worse addictions, but you know what I want to say here. It's sure that it's unhealthy. And although the people know that, there are still a lot of smokers out there. And I'm pretty sure every smoker, every one of today's smokers know that what they are doing is bad for their health. They know it costs them money, it's bad for basically everything. It's a lose-lose situation, and still they keep smoking. The only reason for that is simply because they are too weak to give up their old habits, to give up their old addictions. And it's the same with animal products. Animal products cause an addictive behavior in humans. That's proven. There are some certain chemicals, and it's also the taste, you know, this juicy, fatty, salty, spicy taste, which is so horny. This is a very addictive causing taste and stuff, okay? So we are addicted to animal products, and to give that up costs strength. And being a weak person is not a nice place to be, because you're basically a slave of your addictions. You cannot decide for your own. And I don't want to look in the mirror and see such a person. So basically I also don't want to be a weak person. And now, if I don't want to be uneducated, I don't want to be ignorant, and I don't want to be weak, I have only one choice left. And that is the very small minority, small group of person, the fourth kind of people that exist on this planet, which are those that step the fuck up and improve their game. Alright, so they got educated, they increased their knowledge, and then they adapt their actions towards their knowledge. That's a very important point, and that's the kind of person that I want to see when I look in the mirror. Simple as that, because then you can get better at things. You will adapt to new things you learn. You will learn, and then you will adapt your actions towards that. And that's the thing which will make you a better. It is like that. Sorry, but it's going to make you a better person if you step the fuck up and increase your game, improve your game, just reach the next level. Giving up the animal products because you know it's bad, going vegan. And that's the person I want to see when I look in the mirror. Simple as that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. Tell me your opinion about it in the comments down below. And see you guys in the next video.
Alright, boy. See you in the next video. One of the main issues that I have with this video is the moral high ground. This moral high ground feeling that you so often have in this kind of vegan context, this kind of vegan guy context. Vegan guy sits there judging other people, putting them in certain categories. We've got these uneducated ones, then we've got the ignorant ones, we've got the weak ones, we've got and then we've got the ones that step the fuck up, and of course these minorities, very small, and I myself, of course, am in the small minority of people who step the fuck up because I'm so awesome and everybody else is so stupid. Now, I hate to break it here to you, old school Manny, but you were still in the uneducated category, actually. You were still in the uneducated category, and I still am. Even modern Manny, okay, is still in the uneducated category. Getting to the bottom of a certain topic 100% is super hard nowadays. Again, reality and truth is not that blatantly obvious anymore. We have to do a hell lot of research. We have to do a hell lot of self-experimentation, okay? You can't even trust science anymore at all. At all is probably the wrong word. You can't trust some science, good science. But if you want to really have trustworthy science, you are really well advised actually to go back in time a little bit, okay? Back to a time where there was much less political correctness, much less interest involved, much less money involved, much less agenda, much less propaganda. Nowadays, all these things influence science, okay? And of course, it influences also the results of science. So we gotta be careful here again, and we have all these statistical tests now, okay? We can manipulate results to look the way that we like to have them, to look them, and that's a big problem. But anyway, without getting too much off track here again, I was putting people into these categories because I didn't know that I myself was still uneducated about a few points. And these points, they are about ethics and about environmentalism, actually. And it took me even moving out of the city to grasp some of these concepts, because there's another point. Veganism is of course a city phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that occurs in cities because there the agenda is the strongest and people are the most removed from their natural habitat, from their natural environment, and there they are the most afraid of consuming animal products, because this is all factory farmed and stuff like that. Out here, of course, in the countryside, where every second person has their own animals in their garden, why should they be afraid of eating these eggs, for example? Of course they are not. And they are healthy doing that, all right? So, different situation, and it took me moving actually to that place myself to see how that works, to see how farming works, to see that, for example, if you plant only plants in a certain garden, guess what you need? You're gonna need manure to fertilize that stuff if you don't want to buy, chemical fertilizer and stuff like that, which is another huge problem that comes with modern agriculture. And we could talk about the ethics about that. You know what? Let's talk about it a little bit. Vegans argue for plant farms. Why don't we have just vegetable gardens? These permaculture vegetable gardens, no animals needed, no animals suffering at all and all that kind of stuff. You see, on that plant, we have certain ecosystems. That's what it's called, ecosystems. And an ecosystem involves most of the time plants as well as animals. There are a few exceptions. But if you have a vegetable garden, so we're starting with a forest, actually, most of the time. We're starting with a forest. Human comes, in a forest we've got plants, we've got trees, and we've got animals. We've got deer and all kinds of birds and whatnot. Human comes, deforests the forest. Plants, agricultural plants, like for example wheat, And then 10 years, this wheat grows just fine, until the stores of the soils are depleted. And then all of a sudden, this place turns into a desert, Nothing grows there anymore because the wheat extracted all the nutrients. What was his mistake? He removed the animals, all right? Actually, with his move of deforestation and planting wheat instead of the trees, he didn't really remove the plants, right? Because there were plants there before and now there are plants again. However, he removed a hell lot of animals as well, because no animal wants to live in a freaking wheat field, Very little animals want to live in wheat fields. And they simply do not produce enough fertilizer to keep this soil fertilized. So you can see it's a balance between plants and animals, You remove the animals, you run into problems, and the same happens, of course, if you remove the plants. You run into problems as well, because what should the animals eat then? So it's a constant cycle. That being said, if you want to plant your agricultural plants, you need the animals that you replaced by this move somewhere else to collect their manure, to bring this manure to your field, to fertilize the field. All right, and this is how it works out here just as well. If you don't want to completely ruin the ground, the soil, because that's the next step, Actually, we've got more crops nowadays than we have quality manure, all right? So what we have instead is chemical fertilizer. We have all these pesticides and herbicides because these fields are completely artificial and of course attract a number of bugs and a number of sicknesses and diseases that we have to keep at bay in order to get in a yield that is still profitable. Again, we have profitability here as the core issue, and all of this stuff is quite suboptimal. All right, it is quite suboptimal. No matter how you put it. If you take this grain then and feed it to an animal, that's not suboptimal. I totally agree. And if you take this grain and feed it to a human via a vegan diet or whatever, this is not optimal. Sorry, I said before it's not suboptimal. It's not optimal, It is not optimal either way. What would be more optimal, for example, is you clear the forest, all right, which is in any circumstance a bad move, in my opinion. But the most ethical move would be to clear the forest and then make a meadow. Okay, a meadow is a relatively diverse ecosystem. We've got a hell lot of flowers, a hell lot of grasses, a hell lot of insects and worms and all that kind of stuff, doing their thing in that meadow. There are also natural meadows, by the way, okay? So it is not like that doesn't occur in nature or something. Meadows occur, and these are very diverse places from a biological eco-diversity point of view. I know this because I studied biology. Haha, yeah. But anyway, so then you take one cow and let this cow grass on this meadow, right? I can't tell you exactly how much meadow one cow needs, for a year. But you take this cow and let this cow grass on this meadow. Now, one cow can feed one person in a year, okay? A cow can feed a person in a year. So this meadow, in essence, feeds one person in a year. A meadow which we otherwise would not have access to in any way because we cannot digest cellulose, okay? Cellulose is fiber for us. For these ruminants, for a cow, this is actually good calories, okay? Because they eat this grass, the grass gets fermented in their stomach to produce short-chain fatty acids. The short-chain fatty acids get taken up by them, and that's how they build up their biomass, all right? And this biomass we can actually digest really, really well. And there's a hell lot of nutrients in this biomass as well, which we can also take up really, really well, especially when we practice something that is nose-to-tail eating. It's called as nose-to-tail eating, which is something that has been practiced in rural areas in China, for example, since 10,000 years ago or something, okay? In traditional Chinese medicine, they know that different parts of the animal have different healing properties and that they have different nutrients and different, stuff. Not like the vegans say, oh, it's an animal product, this has to be bad. No, that's not how it works, okay? There's a hell lot of variety inside the animal food realm, and there's a hell lot of variety inside the plant food realm, okay? To exclude one completely is not a smart move, in my opinion. So if we have nose-to-tail eating, we can sustain one human with that cow, with that meadow, essentially, all right? Now, the even more ethical way of consuming animal products would have been like 20,000 years ago or something, when we were still hunters, okay? So we hunted we left the forest, we never deforested the forest, we just left the deer in there, leaving the ecosystem almost untouched, but from time to time taking out one deer of that ecosystem and eating that. This is probably how it went, 50,000 to 20,000 years ago or something. Now, of course, if everybody nowadays would do that, I agree, we would have a problem, because this forest sustains only so many deers, right? And don't forget, in this forest there are not only deers, but there are also wolves, okay? So these wolves eat these deers as well. So we are actually here in a little bit of a competition for these deers. And as you can see, the resources that a natural habitat would provide for us are much more limited than what we can create with this, first of all, domestication of animals, and then second of all, domestication of agriculture, okay? Domestication of these grains, because these grains can actually create a hell lot of calories that we can digest at least somehow, It's not ideal. But yeah, the argument to say that a lot of these grains get fed to animals and that we then eat these animals and that this is an incredible waste of calories is absolutely true. I have to agree with you here. But again, feeding grains to a cow, to a ruminant, for example, is already a crime against nature in the first place. So I am not supporting that if I can, okay? If I can, I would still go for the grass-fed option. Now, again, if we would have to cut down forests to create this grass-fed beef, then so to say, then we're still running into an ethical problem. But to get to the core of this all, okay, let's say all right, we step back, everybody's vegan now, and we all consume these grains directly, which we don't even know how we're gonna do that, because again, we have to fertilize these grains somehow with some sort of manure. Where does it come from? We could use our own instead of flushing it into the sea, would maybe be a good move. But anyway, so the thing is, we are hitting a wall at some point anyway, okay? Because the core issue here, and this is why we cannot go into the forest and hunt our deer anymore, is because we are already so many people here, okay? This is the core issue. And in the end, if you think this to the end, then this is the core issue. And if now everybody would go vegan, okay, of course, in my opinion, at the expense of everybody's health, all right, which is probably what it goes down to in the end. But at the expense of everybody's health, then still, with all that agriculturally grown grain and stuff like that, if we keep making more and more humans on this planet the way we did the past couple of years, then we are going to hit a wall anyway, only maybe a few years later, all right? Because also the amount of grain that we can produce on this planet is kind of limited without completely destroying all, natural habitats. And then we are not even talking about all the freaking animals that die when we remove this forest, plant this grain, which is not a natural meadow that allows biodiversity. Instead, this grain field only harbors a couple of mice, maybe a couple of deer that are running through or something, a couple of insects and birds maybe. And then comes the huge shredder, and kills all these animals, of course. There's a hell lot of bycatch, if you want to call it like that, when these huge field machines go through the fields, completely mechanically already, completely without a human guy even sitting in that thing, controlling what's going on. A hell lot of animals die in that process, all right? So their animals die. And of course, this grain has to be transported. Then there's roadkill and whatnot. There, animals die again. You're using fossil fuels. Where does this fossil fuel come from? Maybe from the rainforest. And a hell lot of animals died there as well to get this fossil fuel. So in the end, you will find that the one cow, okay, so let's picture again the farm, all right, the little farm in Austria, somewhere on the countryside with that one cow, okay, one person living there. If that person has access to that cow, this cow provides more ethical calories than if this person would go to the supermarket and buy the next avocado or banana or whatever, okay? Which involves crazy amounts of shipping, crazy amounts of wildlife and, ecological destruction down there where this stuff comes from, which of course we don't give a shit because it's not here, but just there then, okay? So you get what I'm saying here. Local food is also extremely important, and all these kind of things should go into the ethical discussion. For the vegans is essentially, you should avoid any animal suffering. If you have to kill this one cow, then still these calories are included more animal suffering than this banana that's got shipped here. But how many animals died on the way, to get that banana into my supermarket? And even if I, go buy that banana and maybe kill a frog on the street, now in the past couple of weeks there was actually frog traveling through the forest, and a hell lot of frogs were on the street, got killed, as roadkill essentially, because people wanted to go to the supermarket to buy their bananas. That's one frog, one cow, So if you want to purely count lives, this one cow is one animal life a year, okay? Now that cow killed a couple of animals during its lifetime as well, because it trampled through the meadow, okay? And it probably killed a few insects and a few worms and whatnot. But yeah, in my opinion, if this one person has access to this one cow, this cow provides much more ethical calories than you could get from any supermarket. And in a perfect world, this person could, get that cow, kill that cow on the spot, then there is not even transportation involved in that meat. You could do it in a humane way, okay, because you're doing it yourself. You don't have to deliver this to a slaughterhouse where the conditions again are horrible and stuff like that, okay? So there is ways to do this in a proper way, quote unquote, and this is how it was done back in the day. But nowadays we are living in a world of profitability, okay? Nowadays this is of course not the mainstream anymore, and in fact something completely else gets promoted as the mainstream, okay? However, the main point being that whatever we do, we will at this point in time only postpone the big crash, quote unquote, or whatever is gonna happen, maybe food wars or whatever. Even if everybody turned vegan now at the expense of everybody's health, in my opinion, we would still see the system crumbling, because we cannot simply produce that much grain either to support a ever-growing population, okay, with food, and transport this stuff all around, because don't forget, grains don't grow anywhere, the grains don't grow everywhere. You have to transport, all that kind of stuff goes into that. Animals are, super local. There's almost everywhere some sort of animal population. And this is also why all kinds of tribes have some sort of animal population as the basis of their nutrition, Maybe one final point, all right, in this whole context. It is not everything only rainbows and unicorns, okay? In this video I come across like it is almost a little bit naive, trying to avoid animal suffering at all costs. Is this how nature works? Have you ever thought about how nature works, in terms of in these wildlife documentaries and stuff like that? I mean, nowadays wildlife documentaries are basically a softy version of what they used to be. I still remember how they would show like, hyenas picking apart buffaloes in a freaking swamp or something, bit by bit. I mean, nature has completely different ethical standards than we as humans have. And this is okay, we make up our own ethics. We have the intellect to do so as well. However, we are still a natural construct. Our digestive tract is still a natural construct. So it's kind of a little bit denying nature almost if you want everything to be only rainbows and unicorns, when you want to avoid all death and all suffering and stuff like that. Death and suffering is an inherent part of life, all right? It is the complementing other, How can there be happiness and thriving if there is not also death and suffering? Everything, in this nature eats something. Plants eat decaying animals and animals eat plants. Okay, this is how it works. And then there is animals who eat animals, and again, animals who eat other animals, and everything eats everything. And it is this beautiful network, okay? It is just this beautiful nature, and I've come to peace with it. Honestly, I've come to peace with it. There is this ideal of progressivism, and that everything has to be just so free of suffering, and everything has to be so awesome, and has to be a safe space and stuff. Oh, come on, that sounds super boring, doesn't it? It sounds super boring. That's how I think nowadays about all this stuff. So that's basically it for this one. I hope you got something from it. Leave your comments down below as usual. I would be very glad to read about them. I hope the video wasn't too rambly for you. I will try to put some links maybe to different chapters in the comment section and in the description. Leave a like, leave a comment, that's always appreciated, and I'll see you soon in the next episode, my friends. Great, this video is over, man, it's already late. Bye!